It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Leo Pranitis, who has over 30 years of professional experience in various commercial roles, primarily within the dental industry. He has built and led sales, marketing, and R&D teams that have produced award-winning, market-leading products, several of which continue to hold premier market share positions within the global dental market. In addition to his current role as general manager for Prisyna Oral Healthcare, his previous roles include Vice President of Sales and Marketing North America for Southern Dental Industries, headquartered in Melbourne, Australia, where I did a podcast interview. I went down there, visited them, did a podcast there. Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Sonendo, early stage venture-backed endodontic device in Laguna Niguel, California. Vice President Global Marketing Innovation for Kavo Kerr, previously Kerr Dental, a Danaher company, which just spun off as Invista. During his time at Kerr, Leo directed all new product development and commercialization of a global portfolio that generated over $300 million annually. Leo has been directly involved and led more than 30 new product launches during his career. He is a co-inventor of the world's first single-dose dental adhesive system, U.S. patent number 5,860,806. That patent being first used to commercialize Optimon Solo Bonding Agent, one of the most successful adhesive bonding brands ever launched into the dental market. He holds a BA degree from the Northern Illinois University. When I started Dental Town, people always said to me, Leo, they said, "Hey, Howard, there's this guy on Dental Town. He's not a dentist. I think he works at 3M. I was like, and your question is, well, he shouldn't be allowed on the site. Okay, so if we took, in my opinion, if we took 500 dental companies away, I'm sitting outside on a rug with a bunch of stuff I bought from Home Depot chucking teeth. Is that really the country we want to live in? And here's a guy like you who, Danaher, your background. In fact, the funniest thing that you have ever said in your life, you said that you did this clinical trial conducted by Joel Epstein, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, let's just stop the whole show for Joel Epstein, DMD, MSD, FRCD, FD. That guy is he's like you in a dental suit. He's another legend. So first of all, congratulations on a very long and distinguished career in dentistry, where you just been hitting one home run after. In the World Series, you just sit there and say, dude, I've hit more home runs than that. Is that what you're saying all during the home runs?
Well, geez, Howard, first of all, thank you. That's a remarkable compliment coming from someone like you. Again, I'm honored to be here. And yes, I have had so far a very rich career full of lots of interesting challenges and adventures, no question about it, all around the globe. I've been incredibly fortunate to be in some of the best places at the best times, no question.
How long you been in dentistry? How old are you, and how long you been in this game?
So, boy, I have to tell you how old I am. Okay, so I'm over
Dentistry Uncensored.
I'm over 55, and I've been in dentistry now for 27 plus years now.
Tell me if you see the tea leaves the same. I remember the greatest thing about being 57 is you've seen everything before. When's the last time you've seen something shocking? Like when someone says the president lied. Oh, really? I can remember Nixon. Come on. But I remember way back in the day when the largest Johnson & Johnson company like Gillette in Europe was Siemens, and they owned this little dental company called Sorona, and the CEO decided they were overweighted in healthcare and needed to have more. Right. So they spun off the dental division, which didn't mean anything. The building didn't change, the people didn't change. It's just all legal stuff. But everybody at Siemens, I remember being in, it was in Austria, wasn't it? It wasn't Siemens in Austria?
Someone's going to correct me. I think you're right. It was either Austria or Switzerland, right? One or the other. I think it was Austria.
I remember Austria, and the people there were all like, they were so excited because imagine if your mom and dad didn't love you and somebody came down the street and they said, hey, we'll sell you our baby. And they were like, they said Siemens didn't care. They weren't into dental. They didn't love it. And so now here it is, three decades later, and Danaher spins off Invista, all their dental divisions, the greatest dental companies in the world, and they didn't want them, and they spun them off. Are you seeing another Siemens type deal where you think the management will say, "Hey, buddy, we didn't love you either," and they're just going to blossom and explode, or is it different?
Boy, Howard, man, what a loaded question. And the reason it's loaded is because, I was inside. I watched you interview Michael Miller and Ingrid the other day, and Michael he was waxing poetic about the grand days of Kerr, and which made me it brought a tear to my eye, because I remember the grand days of Kerr, and I was there when it was Cybron Dental Specialties, and then suddenly along comes a company that I didn't know how to pronounce, and I'd heard that they had bought Kavo prior, and they were looking for a consumable, and before I knew it, they were the new owners. And as the story goes, I lived another 6 years under that environment before I decided to leave the company. And I think I learned a lot, and I think they challenged us to do things very differently. And I think that, that history will tell, talk about a politicism, right? History will tell whether or not the moves they made then, and the people that left along the way, and the stories that are yet to be told with this new Invista, that is yet to be written. And that's wow, boy, I should run for office with that answer, I guess. Let's just leave it at that. But I think strong brands, as you mentioned, some of the greatest brands in the dental history were under that umbrella, and now they've decided to spin it off. And I think it makes more sense, certainly for shareholders, because you can have one conversation around dental, and it sets them up well to be able to talk to shareholders about dental and only dental, and it doesn't, and whether it was contributing or dragging down the Danaher portfolio is for someone else of another level of acumen to determine. But I do think it's probably a lot more clean line for a shareholder or a potential shareholder, and so we'll see what happens with that.
So, it's funny, we were talking about Siemens in Austria. My favorite economist is the Austrian economist, Joseph Schumpeter, Business Cycles. And, like you and I have lived through 4 up cycles and 4 down deleveraging cycles, 80, 87, 2000, Lehman's brother. But what's also funny is the consolidation cycle, where I'm old enough to where I remember when I was in college, there were 10,000 microbreweries. It consolidated all the way down to 70 beer companies, and now it's deconsolidated back to 10,000 microbreweries. And I saw it in dental supplies. When I got out of school, every city had its own dental supply. Then guys like Pete Frechette and Stan Bergman, they rolled them all up into like just Shine, Benco, Burkhardt. And now it's deconsolidated again. My God, a new dental supply company opens up every day. Just go to Dental Town. I mean, there's a buyer's club every 5 minutes for a dental supply. So,
No question.
they decide that the best way to grow is with a bunch of debt until everybody's got too much debt. Then it deleverages down. And then their best idea is, you know what? It'd be a lot cooler if we just bought all of our competitors out and let's all consolidate. And then as soon as they get there, the first idea is, well, let's deconsolidate. But enough of that stuff. You are seriously a dental genius. What made you quit Danaher and go start your own company? And when you left 7 years ago, was your first breakout move to do this, what you've done now?
Yeah, so no, it wasn't actually. When I left Kerr, I went to work for a company called Sonendo. And Sonendo is really changing the game, still are changing the game in endodontics. And the engineers and the brilliant scientists there developed a technology that is designed to clean the root canal system with using fluid dynamics, and a very unique and well-patented set of fluid dynamics that incorporates not only that management of fluid, the typical fluids you use in endo, but also vibration, sound, right? And would create vibration from the sound to loosen and remove debris in the canal system. And when I met with the CEO and saw that how well funded it was, and also understood the technology to the extent that I could, I thought to myself, I got to be here. This is where I have to be. And it was literally 10 employees that were all engineers, and they hired me. And and suddenly I was the guy responsible for commercializing the product and building the brand and finding the logos and coming up with the value proposition and building the team around that. It was literally, I walked in the office the first day and they looked at me like I was growing a tail because I was the only guy with commercial experience with a room full of engineers. But that company has blossomed into a tremendous success story. And
how much is their system at Sonendo? How much is that?
I think it depends now. It depends on how you purchase it. My understanding is that there's a couple different opportunities or different ways you can buy the system. But it incorporates a box, right? That certainly doesn't do the technology justice, but it incorporates a box that moves the fluids in a very specific way, and then moves that fluid through a tube to a handpiece, and the handpiece is disposable. And I think that those handpieces are around $50, I think, a piece. I think, depending on how many you buy and other various items. And I could be wrong on that. Last I checked, it was around that.
Well, what would you guess it would buy for the average guy? I mean, you talking 75, 100, 150? What do you think that box costs for average?
No, I think the box is probably less than that. I think it's probably in the 60s, I think, something like 60s? That. Yeah.
And then the disposables per endo would be 50?
Yeah, I think they're around $50.
Yeah, That's because the most dysfunctional thing that I see in dentistry day by day is the dental insurance companies won't be friends or talk or share with the dentist. I mean, even the ADA, when you're at the ADA and you're talking to like their chief economist, she'll say, well, you're up the street from Delta. What does their data say? And they're like, they won't show us their data. I mean, it's embarrassing because of the dentists. The dentists are jerks. You know, if you owned 40,000 McDonald's, you wouldn't cuss at the guy selling you Idaho potatoes. You wouldn't be cussing at them. You wouldn't be saying all the rude things you do to your value chain. But dentists just do it all the time. It's like Delta will give them like $200,000 a year, and they only get like one letter from me because Leo didn't cover the 14-unit bridge that, and they'll just write a rolling ass there. But anyway, when I'm out drinking with insurance guys from the biggest companies after lecturing, they show me data that show that like on 100 million molar root canals, if the endodontists do them in 5 years, 5% are extracted. And if general dentists do them in 5 years, 10% are extracted. So, gosh, if 1 out of every 10 or 1 out of every 20 root canals are being extracted, there's room for improvement on that.
No question about it. The endodontic space was one that just, completely fascinated me. I will tell you, it fascinated me. The endodontist, the specialist, is truly a master at their craft. And I do believe that generally endodontists want to do better work. And I uncovered a tremendous appetite for a new piece of equipment, in the specialty, at least. The endodontists saw the value in being able to do endo better, and they saw the value in making the investment and going through the educational process of using a new device. Because after using it a few times or attending one of our sessions where we shared our data, they were blown away by what those canals looked like after treatment. And the endodontist wants to do a better job. And so I really believe that. But it was fascinating space. But yep, you still have failures. And there's definitely room for improvement in that space, no question about it.
So is Sonendo, they say the 5-finger test, it's got to be faster, easier, higher quality, lower cost, and smaller. It's higher cost, but is it faster, or is the speed the same?
So I'm a little out of my class here because I haven't done a recent update on the science. But my understanding is that the doctors who are using it are doing it within their given time frame that they would ordinarily choose, or they would ordinarily slot for an endo procedure. I think when we first brought the system out and we had it in a few offices. And we were monitoring their use all day. It was taking a little bit longer because there were some things that they had to get used to doing. You have to have a sealed interface around the tooth, and in order for the fluid dynamics to work properly. And so there was a learning curve associated with that. But dentists and endodontists in particular are engineers and artists. That's who you guys are, and they figure out ways to get their procedures into the appropriate time slots to maintain a profitable practice. No question.
Well, there's 1 million MDs in the United States, and over 90% never do surgery. And dentistry is the opposite. I mean, we're all surgeons in an operatory working with our hands. So then I'm trying to work my way up to where you are now, but then you went to SDI down in Australia. I did Samantha Cheatham on episode 1181. Every time I lecture in Melbourne, I always go out to dinner with them. How was it working in America with an Australian company? Because there are some huge cultural differences. Like in Australia and New Zealand and Japan, they use a ton of glass ionomer.
Yes.
And
yes.
America just doesn't do that. So how was it working for a company down under out of North America?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and you're absolutely right. First of all, the Cheatham family is without question just one of the finest groups of people ever. Between Sam and then of course Jeff, right, the founder. Their facility down there, you've been there, so you know this. The facility there is absolutely world class. And I can say that with some experience. I've been to a number of, just like you have, I'm sure, and world class. You could eat off the floors. They're doing all of their own work down there. And the innovation in terms of attention to detail and just complete total integration, so they can really be their own masters of their own production and manufacturing and operations. It's spectacular, and they ran. The company was run very well. So that part for sure. I think the challenges associated with running a North American business of an Australian-based business is just what you articulated in a moment ago, which is just being able to constantly be able to, share what our challenges are here and what the cultural differences are, but primarily what the user differences are. And as you noted, GIs aren't used as much here as they are over there. You've got, some people down in that Pacific Rim area that are just massive promoters of that technology, and there's a lot of followers because of it. But GC sells a lot of glass ionomers in the U.S., and we competed against them every day, along with some of the other companies. And I think we held our own. But if people could see, I'll say this: if people could see the facility in Melbourne, and they could see and talk to the people who are working on the floor in those facilities in Melbourne. It's a kind of a campus, as you know. There's several buildings there. If they could see that, I think SDI would be a predominant market share company, no question, because that's dedication and it's real high quality stuff.
And they're such family people. I mean, I went. Yes. My boys never. Whenever I go out of the country, at least 3 out of 4 go with me. And in fact, the thing that blew Zach's mind away the most, when he realized that kangaroos hate rainy days. Do you know why they hate rainy days?
I didn't know that, but I'm anxious to hear the answer.
Because all the children play inside. They're marsupials, get it? The children are playing in there something. But anyway, I love the Cheatham family. The place is a class act. It is disheartening for me though, and I shared that with her on my podcast. And the fact that when I feel like dentistry has been going backwards for so long. I mean, when I got out of school, all the crowns were gold, cemented with zinc phosphate cement antibacterial, and all the fillings were silver amalgams. And a filling doesn't fail because it breaks. It fails because bugs ate it. And a silver filling is half mercury. You'll never find that in a multivitamin. The other half is silver, zinc, copper, and everything's antibacterial. And SDI was the largest amalgam manufacturer in the Southern Hemisphere. And I would go, I've been to half the countries in Africa. And 30 years ago, they were in their place in amalgam, and I knew that little kid would have restoration for 30 years.
Right.
Now I see that same kid, the dentist, no assistant, no rubber dam, acid etch, rinse, and then the kid switches with a Dixie cup of water, and it's like, what? And then he'll paint on the bonding agent cure. Then the kid sits up and swishes water again. Then he puts in the composite cure. And then the dentist spends 30 minutes polishing it. I'm like, well, why don't you spend 30 years polishing it? Because You contaminated every bonding agent. The thing so it feels like 30 years ago, you could have gone to any continent and any filling would have lasted 3 decades. And now you go to any continent, there's no amalgam, it's all plastic, it's all inert, it's all going to fail in 6 years. But you know what? They look prettier. And you know, as long as you got it, I call dentistry the aesthetic health compromise. I mean, and then you got these women with a bar through their nose, and they don't want a silver filling. It's like, ma'am, you have a bone through your nostrils. I mean, I'm pretty sure that the ooh and the ah isn't going to be the silver. But anyway, I'm sitting here. All my dentistry is gold cemented with zinc phosphate, and none of it's failed in decades. I mean, I think 30 years it hasn't failed.
Right.
But anyway, enough of that. They want to be pretty. So I hope they're pretty. So then you went to Zest. So talk about your time at Zest.
Yes, I did. So Zest was originally Zest Anchors, as you know, and that's an overdenture anchor system that they market on their own name, and then they also supply to nearly every implant company of any consequence out there across the globe. And so that overdenture anchor system then gets customized to match with that implant system of the various companies, whether it be Zimmer or Straumann or et cetera, et cetera. But prior to my arrival at Zest, Zest had also, oh, by the way, that business, of course, was doing very well because there was a lot of intellectual property around that. No one else was able to do it. And so they were looking for ways to spend their money, and they decided to acquire Danville Materials, which you know Danville Materials, right? You had
Ray Bertolotti,
exactly, and some others that were a part of that organization and built it to what it was. Started out as a micro etcher company, pretty much, and then moved on from there to a dental materials company as well. So Zest purchased this, looking to round out their portfolio, and needed someone to run that business. And then they successfully recruited me to go do that, and so and that's what I did.
And what would you say Zest's core product was?
So Zest's core product is really their locator product, which is that overdenture anchor system, and they had a fixed version of that and a removable version of that. And that occupied a great deal of their time. It was probably in the Zest portfolio at the time was probably 75 to 80% of the overall revenue of the Zest portfolio, with Danville then making up the rest of that mix. So very interesting group. Many of them came from the implant space. And landed at Zest. And so, you want to talk about different cultures sometimes, right? A dental materials guy coming into an overdenture anchor company, that was interesting. That's another example of where I walked in and they kind of looked at me like I was growing a tail. But we ended up doing some good things. We were able to grow the Danville business double digits year on year, and introduced a couple of interesting brands, products. We introduced Bulk Easy, and we introduced Sem Easy, both of them with a unique curing mechanism that was designed to cure without a curing light. In the case of Bulk Easy, sort of a dual cure mechanism that would allow doctors to do more of a bulk filling without fear of extreme polymerization shrinkage. And so that product became part of our daily conversation at Danville, and did very well out there. And I don't know what it's doing right now, but I know that it did very well when I was there.
Bulkies, Accolade, Area, Starflow. The thing that that blows my mind is that you go to every dental convention, they've always got this, some guy lecturing on all-on-4, and everybody's just all drooling on themselves at this guy doing all-on-4, and it's like, and then I'm like, okay, raise your hand if you've never done one all-on-4 in your entire life. Everybody's hand goes up. Then I say, raise your hand if you've done an all-on-none this month. A denture. All the hands go up. And then I'm like, okay, so at 64, 10% of Americans have no teeth. 20%, at 74, 20% have zero teeth. This is CDC numbers. And here's Zest. where grandma can come in, she's miserable, you place 2 little implants in her jaw, little mini implants, and get her denture to snap on, and you could, and I always use the same denture. Why even make her a new denture? I mean, just do it right then. And
Right.
she loves you for life, and you make all this money, and nobody does it. And they all want to learn how to do this $25,000 arch, $50,000 all on 4K. So I'm like, dude, you live in Salina, Kansas. If anybody had $50,000 in Salina, Kansas, the first thing they would do is leave Salina, Kansas. They'd be living in San Diego or Melbourne, Australia. They sure as hell wouldn't be living in Salina, Kansas. And my homies, they always think all the money is made in owning a Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. And I tell them all the money is in McDonald's. And if you want to go learn how to do all on 4, you should first tell someone who loves you, a psychiatrist, your medical doctor, somebody who can tell you, no, go treat the people in your zip code. So what I always tell people is before you take a CE course, how many times this month has someone asked you for that product or service? So no one's ever asked you for this product ever in your life, and you want to go learn money on. So then you now you've been
That's a good story. If you think about it, right? So you talked earlier about how things are cyclical, just incredibly cyclical in nature. And you've got contraction, expansion, contraction, expansion. Well, you know this. We watched this expansion of the aesthetic revolution where all of a sudden all these doctors were attending courses learning how to do, 8 up top and 8 down below veneers, right? All of a sudden the entire world needed full mouth veneers. And all of that work was being done. You had these big institutes that were being built around it. One of my good friends, Bill Dickerson, built a very prominent institute around that. But that's the kind of work they were doing. And they were unapologetic about, charging patients $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for these cases. And they became very successful doing it. And so, it's remains to be seen whether or not that kind of work has a marketplace now, or if it's just now it's just shifted from the cosmetic aspect of it for maybe a 35 to 45, and maybe now it's shifted to the 55 to 65 who are 75 that are in dentures and they want them locked in, and that's why Clear Choice maybe is doing so well, because all of a sudden those centers are popping up everywhere, and they're charging that kind of quantity now, that kind of money to do, to lock in, like you said, all on 4s, right? And they're charging a lot of money. And people are giving away their 401ks and they're draining their bank accounts so they can have all that done. I guess that's the cyclical nature of our business, as you said earlier.
Bill Dickerson did so many things right. The head lady at the ADA National Convention tells me every time she's ever done a survey on where do dentists want to go for a meeting, 70% still pick Vegas. And then 20%, it's any of the Disney properties, Disney World, Disney, whatever. So there's Dickerson in Vegas with Iva Claire, Bob Ganley writing this whole cosmetic revolution. But I graduated from LVI. I liked all that. But you know what I called bullshit on at first was these guys were all joining the AACD and learning veneers.
Right.
But when their daughter needed straightening, it was bleaching and braces. So now where LVI turned into is Invisalign. So the technology caught up with what they were doing for their own kids. Like you wouldn't let your daughter go get upper 10 and lower 10 veneers by some...
Probably not.
Yeah, because in 10 years they'd all have to be replaced. And with, we're all going to die anyway, but Invisalign is a lot more conservative than veneers. I mean, there's no questions there. And Bill was an amazing cosmetic revolution. So of all the things, you could have gone anywhere. You could have got any pay you wanted. You could have made your own destiny. Why Prisyna? Where did that come from? And how did that come along? After, basically you did everything, and then you decided you were going to go to Prisyna. And so what was that? What was all that about on your journey?
First of all, you're officially now my agent now after that intro, because you've just said some good things about me. I appreciate that. I think,
dude.
Yeah,
you already knew it.
We It's Prisyna, by the way, and the way you said it is the way most people say it, unfortunately. And Prisyna, the attractiveness for Prisyna was that it was very similar to what went on in my head when I went to Sonendo. And let me explain. Sonendo was a company with incredible technology and in their case, some pretty significant funding as well, but incredible technology backed by some really, really just unbelievably brilliant people that wanted to change the way endodontics was performed. They wanted to change the game. And they believed in it, wholeheartedly, and to the most incredibly intense effect. And I appreciated that because I'm a product guy. I love launching products and launching brands, and I love getting into the conversation and saying, nope, this is different. Whatever you've seen before, this is different than what you've seen before. And let me tell you why. I just enjoy that, and I love building things. And so along comes Prisyna, and Prisyna is actually the oral healthcare division of a parent company called Synogen. And in some of the names that I'm going to share with you, you're going to hear an SYN, right? There's an SYN in there. And so the parent company is Synogen, and Synogen developed a line of molecules, intellectually, IP protected, innovative, multinational patent molecules that are based on a naturally derived science with things that are found in nature. And the story behind Synogen is fascinating because the founders, one is a PhD research scientist that was at one of the most highly acclaimed schools, the Claremont colleges, up in just outside of LA here, and the other founder was a medical doctor in the military.
So the PhD you're talking about, Shenda Baker?
That's right, Dr. Shenda Baker.
And then the other one is Maureen Suda?
The founder is Dr. Bill Wiesman, and he's the medical doctor, and he did his time in the military and came up with an idea to use the early beginnings of this molecule in a wound care product that the FDA approved nearly overnight, and I'm almost not exaggerating when I say that. And he developed this technology that involves really two things. One is arginine, and the other is chitosan. And people usually know what arginine is, amino acid found in nature, right? But people don't generally know what chitosan is. Chitosan is a naturally found biopolymer. It's actually the second most abundant biopolymer found in the face of the earth. It can be derived from a variety of sources. We actually happen to derive our chitosan from the shells of shrimp, actually, of a crustacean, the shrimp. So you have chitin, and then we derive chitosan. We take the chitosan and we merge it in a reactor with arginine, and that creates a new molecule that does a number of very interesting things to the mucosal surface. So I'm going to back up a minute. Synogen is taking this molecule and applying its horsepower, its prowess, in a variety of medical verticals. And so Synogen has formulations that are being applied in cystic fibrosis, in wound care, in GI treatment, in nasal, and there's even a contemplation on ocular. So wherever mucosal surfaces would benefit from this science, Synogen has an answer for it. So what does it do? So the molecule does the following. The chitosan brings moisture to the mucosal surface, and it does a beautiful job of keeping that surface clean. Chitosan has been studied for at least 100 years now, and is widely known in other industries as an anti-inflammatory, as an antibacterial, and it's also known for its ability to grab on, or what they say, aggregate impurities so that you can pull them away. This is why chitosan is used in wine making. It's used in water treatment. It's used in pesticides as a naturally derived pesticide. It's used in, you can even get chitosan infused athletic wear now. There's more than one company that sells chitosan infused athletic wear, and it's because chitosan's natural ability to pull away and wick away bacteria and impurities. So
Okay,
you
I'd like to buy a vowel.
buy a vowel. Go.
I am guessing that that the product I'm guessing now the product Cheeto Tech was named
Kytotech.
after Cheeto San.
Kytotech after Kyto San.
Kytotech after Prisyna San. Okay, did I win the did I win what's behind door number 2?
You got to say it right at least 10 times. Like my mother used to say, you got to use it 10 times in a sentence before it's really yours.
So Kytotech is named after chitosan, which is a linear polysaccharide composed of glucosamine. And
that's exactly right.
Okay.
And Synogen.
I
is
did
our
not
parent
make that.
company.
I tell you, I did not make that connection.
Yeah, no, it's you know, and so you are seeing firsthand, right? You're experiencing in our viewers are experiencing in real time the challenges associated with marketing such wickedly effective science with some of the most challenging nomenclature out there, and so perhaps that was part of the enticement for me to join the organization. But to get back to your original question, is why did I do this? I did this because this technology, this science, is real science. These founders are real innovators, and this chemistry, it can make a significant difference in the oral healthcare space. We have, and I'll tell you what tipped me over. Can I tell you a story?
Yeah.
All right. So I'll tell you what tipped me over on this. I was in the middle of interviewing with the company, and the CEO shared with me an email that she received from a patient. It was from a consumer, right? But this person was a patient because he had suffered greatly from chemotherapy and radiation treatment because of the cancer that he had. So he described in painstaking detail his morning regimen of getting up and trying to obtain moisture in the mouth. And he described a regimen that took him from 6:30 in the morning till about 10 o'clock in the morning to be able to get enough moisture in his mouth so that he could, drink and eat food. And as he wrote in this email, he said, I was literally, and it was an emotional thing to read. He said, I was literally at a point where I was contemplating that I really just didn't want to live anymore. Because if this was my morning every morning, I didn't want to live anymore. And then, remarkably, he was chosen as one of the patients in our 57-patient study with Joel Epstein and Christina Pappas from Tufts. And he immediately found relief in the product. And he took it upon himself to write our CEO and tell us that whole story that I just described to you. And that put me over the top when I realized, okay, this is how acute and how horrible xerostomia can become because of a variety of circumstances. It can become this way because of medications we're on. It can become this way because of an autoimmune disease. It can become this way because of age, but it can also become this way because of the treatments that are associated with cancer and the medications associated with that and the damage that all the cancer can do. And this guy was at his end. He was at his end. And serendipity would have it. He was in the study and he has relief. And I talked to this guy from time to time. I introduced myself after I got to the company and told him who I was. And I talked to him from time to time just to see how he's doing. And he is experiencing a completely different life because he is using a product that gives him the relief he needs. And I think that for me, that was a tipping point. And that we burned 15 minutes with me answering that question, but I think it's a good story. I'm
stuck on. I need to ask a question. I'm stuck on something. First of all, that it is a great story, and I wish dentists would focus on other things like complete tooth loss and suicide. I mean, walk up to any girl and say, if you lost all your teeth, would be no big deal, or would you cry, or would you be sad? And they're like, oh my God, they'd be mortified. And then I'd say, okay, well, let's say tomorrow morning you woke up and you had no teeth and your hair looked just like mine. You'd lost all your teeth and all your hair. What would you do? Half the girls say, oh, I'd kill myself. And it's always challenged my self-esteem to know that when girls think about looking like me, the first thought they have is they'd kill themselves. But it's a serious deal. And when these dentists are talking about all on 4 for $50,000, well, why don't you tell me how many girls in your zip code killed themselves when they lost all their teeth, got a denture, couldn't talk, slipping, sliding, didn't want to be there. But when you were saying about Cheeto Tech, is that
Kaido Tech?
Kaido Tech, named after Kaido sand, polysaccharide, made by treating chitin shells of shrimp and other crustaceans with alkaline substances like sodium hydroxide. Sodium hydroxide, caustic soap. It's like soap. I mean, is that a big part of it? Is sodium hydroxide?
So what you've described is the process between taking, chitin and synthesizing to chitosan. We get the chitosan in a highly purified fashion, and then we put it through our own purification process. And to give you an example, when we get the chitosan in, it looks a certain way, it looks pure, it looks clean, and then we put it through a purification process, and there's a byproduct that comes off of that purification process, and like in a jar, and it's got some color to it. We remove that. And so the chitosan that we're using is several steps removed from whatever process is required to get it to chitosan in the first place. And then it's, also several steps removed from the meat of the shell or the meat of the shrimp, which is typically what causes the shellfish allergies. And so we're pretty far removed from all of that. By the time we are done with it and we're ready to merge this with arginine, it's a highly purified.
But I was talking about is it like a sodium hydroxide though? Is that the active ingredient or not really?
No.
Okay. And so the whole company, Prisyna, did I say no? Prisyna.
Prisyna.
Prisyna. I'm Catholic, so I'll just remember sin. Prisyna. That's an easy way. Is Prisyna and Moisten? They're both for xerostomia. So is the whole company aimed at xerostomia?
So the name, our company name is Prisyna. Moisten is our dry mouth product specifically. That's our product for dry mouth relief. We do have 2 daily mouthwashes that use a slightly lower concentration of Chitotech, and those products are called Synodent and Synodent FLX. And FLX is the one that has fluoride. But both of those products.
I thought that meant flow, but it meant fluoride.
Yep, that's our fluoride rinse.
Okay. Huh.
And so we use the Chitotech in all of those products at varying concentrations. And of course, the Moisten, the dry mouth product, is available in a rinse as well as a spray. The spray is convenient, obviously, for on the go, or if you need a spritz, you want to keep it by the bedside, things like that. But yeah, all of the products have. So
the company's Prisyna, and they make Moisten or Moisten and Synodent.
That's right.
Okay. I'm not the quickest boy in the school, but I finally got it. So Prisyna makes Moisten and Synodent.
That's right.
Synodent sounds like synonym. Anything there?
No. Just that SYN comes in because of the parent company, Synogen. And the full disclosure, the naming convention on those products was established before I arrived, and I didn't see enough reason to change it. So there we are. But I think you picked up on it faster than a lot of people do, so I appreciate that.
All right,
it's good that we got a chance to work through it.
What I love the most about this show, what's the most challenging is if you're listening, send me an email, howard@dentaltown.com, put the comments in the YouTube. My own mother says I have a face for radio and podcasts and not YouTube, so you choose wisely there. But most of my listeners, they're still in dental kindergarten school. They haven't even got their license to harm people yet. So they might not have seen a xerostomia patient. What are they? I mean, put it in their mind. Are these little old ladies at nursing homes? Are these grandmas and who are these people?
Is that part of the ecosystem that includes xerostomia? Yeah, absolutely. As we age, we produce we have a drier mouth. Right, and as we age, there's no question about it, and that's certainly a large population associated with xerostomia. But the larger population associated with xerostomia, and this is why the market attractiveness of a dry mouth product is so high, is that there's over 1,000 medications that are associated with creating dry mouth. And some of these medications you take all the time, and some of them you take once in a while. And so that actually, if you were to look at a chart, that would be the high bar on the chart, on the graph, right? That'd be the high bar on the graph, would be medications that cause dry mouth, and anything with histamine in it is a big contributor to dry mouth. But there's so many others. Many of the antidepressant drugs that are out there now cause dry mouth. A lot of the treatments, a lot of the things, a lot of the post-cancer treatment protocols, result in dry mouth, or either through that or through the procedures that went through or the damage that occurred. And then, of course, you have autoimmune diseases as well. We did for a while. We partnered with the Sjogren's Foundation. Sjogren's is an autoimmune disease that affects as many as 4 million people or more in the U.S. alone, and it presents itself initially very often with extreme dryness, dry skin, dry eyes, dry mouth, and they are suffering greatly. Those people are suffering greatly to some extent, depending on their condition, their level of their condition. And they are constantly looking for relief. I attended a meeting last year at the Sjogren's, earlier this year, the Sjogren's annual event, and a woman came up to me and she could not speak because her mouth was so dry and tongue was attaching to her mouth, and she was trying to tell us that she needed something right then and there so she could go eat lunch. So we gave her some samples. She went to the bathroom, she rinsed, she came back out. She was, obviously ebullient over the fact that we were able to give her relief immediately so she could go eat. But the high bar on the Pareto chart, no question, is medications. And then you have the cancer community, you have autoimmune diseases, you have old age. All of those things contribute to xerostomia. And how do they identify it? Well, certainly the hygienists, which is where we've been spending a lot of our time in this first year of launch with Moisten. The hygiene community sees it every day, and they have some general recommendations that they fall into, as you might imagine, around suggesting certain products for patients. But the hygienists are hungry. I mean, just passionately hungry for new options around dry mouth relief, because generally what they found, and I hear this literally every day, whether I talk to a hygienist or I see it in an email, and I'm not exaggerating when I say I hear it every day, that they are looking for something better than what they're recommending now. And I think that's been a large component of our initial success, is being able to give them something that they haven't seen before, something that's different. It's a very naturally derived formula. We don't have anything in there that we shouldn't have in there. There's no artificial colors. There's no chlorines. There's no sulfates. There's no castor oils. There's none of that stuff. And all those things I just said, you can find in other dry mouth products. You can find in other oral rinses. And I don't know why. But they're there, and we don't have that. And so the need is huge. It comes from a variety of vectors, and there's a lot of runway for this. And I think this is only going to grow. Dry mouth conditions are only going to grow as more and more medications present themselves, and as we identify more directly what some of these autoimmune diseases are doing as well.
One of the things that blows my mind is so many things that you say are just obvious that you just get rejected for. Like a lot of Americans now think healthcare should be free. Okay, healthcare is the third leading cause of death. It kills 250,000 people a year. Johns Hopkins just came out with a report that said 440,000 Americans die each year in the hospital system. Medical errors are the third leading cause of death of heart disease. And then you're sitting there talking about polypharmacy, which refers to the use of a large number of medications, commonly considered to be the use of 5 or more, since polypharmacy is a consequence of having so by the time you take 5 prescription medications at the same time, you're probably going to be a lot worse off than before. And if you go to a damn hospital, I don't know, it'll just kill 440,000 Americans this year.
That's amazing.
But then you go to dentists. Some of my very good friends, and by that I mean they have drinking problems, and after every root canal, they'll give a script of Pen VK. And I'll say that you're 80% of prescriptions are not necessary, and you're part of the problem. They go, I don't even care. I'm just covering my ass. I don't want to get sued. Blah 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 blah. But my gosh, it's like this healthcare system. I mean, could you imagine thinking if it kills $440,000 free, and you think healthcare should be free? Well, why are cigarettes free?
I bet you won. I bet you won a lot of. Did you win a lot of debates? Were you on the debate club in high school? Were you?
I was, and I actually all my debates were at home because my two oldest sisters went straight into the nunnery after. In fact, when you said Raymond Berlotti, did you know my sister and his wife used to be in this exact same cloistered Carmelite monastery?
Really?
They're both nuns of the same order that goes back like 8 million years. I think it goes back 1,000 years. But yeah, those religious debates were very, very fun. And it's not that I like to debate. It's just like when you tell me that your composites last as long as amalgams, I hope you're drinking. I hope you have a doctor's reason for saying something that asinine. Because when the insurance companies say, well, if you look at 100 million posterior composites, the amalgams last somewhere between 20 and 38 years, and the white plastic inert ones last 6.5. And then you look me in the eyes and say, mine lasts longer. Well, no, they don't. You're actually just nuts. And by the time you're on 5 prescriptions, you're killing people. And what you just said, this whole xerostomia thing, is because it's probably going to be a really huge market in America where we have the most insane healthcare system where every senior citizen's on 5 or more prescriptions, and 440,000 Americans get eaten alive in a hospital from a death something they didn't have wrong when they walked in there. Like they say the number one cause is actually medical errors. It's the third leading cause of death. Third leading cause of death after heart disease and cancer. I mean, you always see these walks in the park for breast cancer. Where's the walk in the park for the IT department that can't enter a prescription right that kills 404? Can we have what color ribbon should that be? It's just crazy. But I imagine you are going to hit a home run if you're selling something that treats xerostomia, which is for the most part in this country caused by polypharmacy.
Yeah, no, it is. It absolutely is, Howard. And the thing is that it's bigger than that. If people knew what happens to a mouth when it becomes dry, and it sounds so silly, right, what we're talking about right now, but the fact of the matter is people knew what happens to the mouth when the mouth becomes dry. It's a cascade of events that can be nightmarish if it's left unchecked. And it doesn't take long for some people. For some people, it takes longer, based on their physiology. But the fact of the matter is that, if you don't have that normal salivary flow, then you're going to have some problems, and they're going to be cavities that they're going to fill with tooth color restoratives that only last 6 years, and then there's going to be periodontal issues, and those things can progress, as if they're left untreated, and then there's the aspect of being able to keep the mouth clean and keep it fresh. And one of the events that we went to was a cancer event run by this cancer group called Stupid Cancer, and it was Cancer Con, and there were hundreds of people there. And I talked to, and it's an association that's designed to attract younger cancer sufferers, and it was more like a celebration than it was anything else, which is the idea behind their group, which is to feel like it's okay that you have cancer. Don't hide in the shadows. It's okay. Come on out. We'll all talk about it and figure it out together. That's the idea behind their association. I'm not doing them justice right now, but the fact of the matter is that it was a jubilant environment. But I talked to so many people that when I explained to them what our technology does and how it does it in a naturally derived way, they said to me, I wish I had known about this when I was going through chemo, because what happens to the mouth, right, is just
you got Joel B. Epstein, DMD, MSD, FRCD. I mean, the guy is a certified specialist in oral medicine from the
Yes.
most prestigious hospitals all the way up the West Coast, from San Diego, Cedars-Sinai, all the way to Vancouver, Canada.
Yeah.
My God, you should get that guy to do an online CE course, or because my homies.
Good idea.
If you're not a dentist, you're trying to sell them something, and I'm like,
Right.
oh, so you're a volunteer dentist in a public health clinic? No, I have a CAD cam and I sell veneers. Oh, okay, so you sell
Yeah.
something and it's good, but but my buddy, he sells something, and now all of a sudden Leo, he's just a salesman, but you're a sacred dentist. But that's how my homies think. I would get, well, first of all, how did you get Joel to get on this deal? I mean, he is gotta be the most credentialed, smartest.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that guy's. I mean, my God, I could read about him all day long. I mean,
Yeah, he's remarkable, and the network. So he was one of the advisors to Synogen, and has a connection with both of our founders, the two individuals that I spoke of earlier, and had such a strong interest in this science and the capabilities that it presented, that I think it became, almost a fait accompli that he would do some research around our dry mouth product. I think primarily because he just knew that the results would be significant, and in fact they were. If you look at our website, you have a couple of extracts from that study that he did on our dry mouth product, and you're seeing things like 100% improvement in resting saliva. You're seeing 80+% satisfaction and increase in moisture and happiness. You're seeing another interesting data point: 30% decrease in pain associated with sleep, and that's a significant one, right? Because if you think about all the tendrils associated with good health, sleep is certainly one of them, and sleep's a big topic, of course, in dentistry these days, due to the apnea, of course. But the other issue is the pain associated with sleeping and trying to sleep through mouth pain from xerostomia or oral lesions or whatever, and so that we thought that was a significant data point as well. And so we call that out. As a key takeaway from the study. But Joel has been advising the organization Synogen for quite a while, just from a standpoint of, here's what kind of research I think we could do to showcase the product. He's not, it's not anything other than his interest as a researcher, of course, and fortunately the results have spoken for themselves, and we've been fortunate to have his name on there. No question about it. We do get great support from the community, though. The hygiene community has a remarkable network of thought leaders. You had someone on your program not too long ago, Jill Meyer-Lippert from Side Effect Support, right? And she's really doing some wonderful things out there. She's incredibly active in the community from an educational standpoint, and she does offer products that specifically around patients who are suffering from cancer, and she does a beautiful job, I think, representing not only the companies that she's working with, but also does it the right way, right? She talks about treatment, she talks about the patients, she talks about the practitioners, and then all of that, the products that she supports, comes through from that in a genuine way. And she's one of the most genuine people I've ever met. I know you had her on the show recently, and she's I think, a shining light in the space. There's a number of people that are in thought leadership that are very unbiased in their opinions about certain things, and I think you see that with hygiene maybe more than I saw in some of my other lives. But the hygiene space seems to be very, very much about let's talk about what's working, let's talk about what's not, let's talk about what's out there, what are our options, let's try this. And I enjoy that. I enjoy that immensely. I think that's a healthy attitude.
Do you spend any time with Dr. Shenda Baker?
Well, yes, I do. I absolutely do.
I want to go drinking with that woman. She's got a doctorate in chemistry, French, and religion. That's a party right there. I want to eat a cheeseburger and do shots with someone who has a PhD in chemistry, French, and religion. That is out there. Those are three things that don't go together. Chemistry.
Well, I will tell you, it's a fantastic combination, because if you met Shenda, she would blow your mind. She is, I'm a passionate guy, especially when it comes to things I believe in or when I think I've been wronged. I'm very passionate. But I'll tell you, no one is a more comprehensive advocate for this science, and no one I've ever seen can present the science in such a beautifully articulate fashion, and be able to distill it into layman's terms as well. And then she can just dial that up into, PhD speak at anyone's level.
And talk about she's a PhD in chemistry. Probably did the Rush just for curiosity. But William Wiseman is an MD, and he's a neuro guy. Was his neurology fellowship, did that lead him in? I mean, he's also at the NIH, but where did that MD get interested in xerostomia?
Well, so the line for Bill and Shenda is they came from, she came from obviously from academics. He came from the medical space. He was a medical doctor in the Army, and he worked in the field of battle. And so his original thought was finding ways to utilize a chitosan-based wound dressing to save soldiers with acute trauma, and that proved out. And as I had mentioned earlier, that the FDA fast-tracked the approval of that so that they could start using that in the field of battle. Now, I'm giving you a very high-level summary, and I'm sure I'm skipping a few steps along the way. But when he and Shenda then got together and started developing molecules, then that's when they realized that they had the capability to greatly, in a very naturally derived way, greatly affect a positive impact on mucosal surfaces. So while I'm sitting here today talking to you about Prisyna and how we've commercialized Moisten for dry mouth, there are conversations going on within a variety of medical verticals around how our molecules can positively affect other mucosal surfaces within the body. And that's the strength behind the chemistry, is that it can be purposed across a variety of medical activities. We have a company called Synspira that has been spun off. That's a cystic fibrosis. So that molecule has manifested itself in a cystic fibrosis treatment. I think they're at a secondary level now, clinical trials to validate that science around treating of cystic fibrosis. And as I mentioned, we can affect a GI environment in a positive fashion, nasal, ocular. There's a lot of applications for the science, and they're all at different stages right now.
Well, you know what? I wish you'd do for me. And by the way, I just want to say one thing. Last time, I can't believe we went over an hour and we're done. But I got to tell you that when I started Dental Town, I owned Dentist Town. Hell, it was 1998. You could buy any domain. And my gosh, I didn't want Dentist Town because, again, if the guys at Danaher and Kerr and Prisyna, if you don't know if all the dentists are saying, man, why do they make it blue? It needs to be red. Well, you need to know that more than anybody. I'm just bitching to my homies. You need to be in on the conversation because you're the guy that's making it. And I told those dentists at the start, and then so I called it Dental Town, and I said, if you work full-time in dentistry, I want you on Dental Town. And all the dentists, they fought it. They're like, well, that guy's selling something. Dude, you sell something. And then on the cover of Dental Town, I had to stop it, but when I was little, with me and my 5 sisters, when we go on vacations, we'd always drive to a big old amusement park, theme park. We drove all the way to Disneyland, Disney World. But along the way, we'd always stop at where they made something. Like we watched our family car be made in Detroit and then bought it at the end of the assembly line. My dad, I've seen Budweiser. Coors was one of the neatest in Denver because Adolf Coors, by the way, that guy's name was Adolf Coors. And after World War II, Adolf wasn't a very popular name. So all that, like the manufacturer of Adidas, his name was Adolf Doss, and he made Adolf tennis shoes, but Adolf Hitler ruined that name. So after World War II, he dropped it from Adolf to his nickname Adidas, and Americans call it Adidas. But it's Adidas, and so Adolf Coors went to just Coors, but he made his own bottles. And so he had a whole bottle department. So, of course, he hired the smartest chemists, and they made the first dental porcelains that were used on porcelain for Crown and Bridge were made. But anyway, I love doing that stuff. So on the cover of Dental Town, I would always put a guy like you on the cover, making the stuff that we use that makes us look great to our patients and the dentists. From 94 till yesterday, they rejected. Oh, it's a throwaway. Some guy on the cover selling stuff. Oh, dentist. Oh, you're a dentist. Guess what? There's 2 million other dentists. You know how many guys have started a dental company? It's like when people say they got, who's that guy with Tesla? Elon Musk.
Elon Musk?
Elon Musk always say, well, he's crazy. Dude, only 20 people on Earth have started a car company, okay? Yeah, we already know they're not normal. You're normal. But not the guys who start car companies, okay? So, I wish I could go back putting an amazing, like on one vacation, I took my 4 boys to Oregon where Kent Austin, who just passed away, and his wife Joanne, and we spent the whole day watching. At one end, they're bringing in pallets of leather and beads and pellets, and at the other end is an A-deck chair.
Yeah,
now, how freaking cool is that? In a town of 10,000...
Right.
And if you go to try to put Ken and Joanne Austin, who are both dead, on the cover, people say, oh, they're just trying to sell something. No, dude, they're dead. They're actually...
There's a ton of good stories out there.
I know, and the dentist can't handle... So what? All this was a prep to tell you, I'm sorry, Leo, but you sell something. But if I go on to... I'm smart enough...
I'm not going to get on the cover?
I would put you on the cover, and my own staff won't let me because they'll get all the hate mail. But if you go... and type in see, the reason we use message board, social media is first in, last out. It's all just for entertainment. But if you go to John Hopkins, if you go to Mayo Clinic, if you go to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, which I have on all these places, they only use a message board format because all the posts are organized or cataloged. We have 50 forms. If I type in dry mouth, every post that's ever been on dry mouth is still, and it's 5 pages of threads that just start with dry mouth therapies, dealing with dry mouth is crap, dry mouth woes, dry mouth prescription, dry mouth, what do you do with dry mouth patients? Does electrostimulation work on xerostomia? It just goes on and on and on. But if you go answer those questions, they'll say, oh my God, he's trying to sell something. He needs to be caught and arrested. But man, if you could get someone like Joel Epstein to go on there for an hour or two and answer these guys' questions, because they'll love Joel because he's got 48 initials after his name, and that's the whole deal in dentistry. As long as you got at least half the alphabet behind your name. But man, if you could get Joel, in fact, tell Joel anytime he wants to come on the show. I will. I wish he'd go on there and talk about xerostomia, and also to remember that when they're answering those questions, Joel's got to be. He's got to be as old as I am. He's got to be reminded that a quarter of them kids are still in dental kindergarten school. So tame it down just a little. But you are an amazing man, Leo.
Thanks,
I
Howard.
hope.
So are you.
Well, I'm a legend in my own mind, but you're a legend in my mind. And tell Sonendo that I want to do an episode of her. Has nothing to do with anything but how someone gets a PhD in chemistry, French, and religion. Those are just, remember that song on Sesame Street? One of these things, they don't go with the other. Tell her religion, French, and chemistry. That's, I could only imagine that as some kind of soup in the French quarters. What do they call it? Gumbo?
Gumbo? Yeah.
Gumbo.
That's sort of a gumbo.
It's got to be a dish.
Share that with her. You'd be surprised. She might show up at your door one day. She would be the best interview you'd ever have. I guarantee it. She is unbelievably engaging and brilliant and friendly and educational all at once. She's a really amazing person.
Yeah. And so you dentists out there, this is an amazing product by amazing people. And I have no connection. Did you pay me $1 to come on this show?
No, sir.
Yeah, there's no money changing hands. And the one that really got me the most on this, that it was involved with Joel Epstein and then you, who have hit so many out of the ballpark. But just remember, Dennis, you are part of this problem too, that polypharmacy problem. If you're one of my homies out there giving a prescriptive Pen-BK and Vicodin after every damn root canal and every damn wisdom tooth, come on, there's 1 million MDs, but there's 211,000 dentists licensed to practice dentistry in America today. Dentistry is only 5% of the healthcare budget. That's true. But when you just look at bodies, there's 1 million MDs and there's 200,000 dentists. And you guys, when you look at the opioid addiction, you look at polypharmacy, my God, dentists are all over those charts. So yeah, you need to treat xerostomia because there's guys like you out there handing a prescription every time a patient walks in. So knock off the prescriptions. They don't do anything for colds. They don't do anything for herpes. And I know why you don't want to talk about herpes, because it's a sore subject. Get it? Sore subject. So quit writing prescriptions for every root canal and extraction. Quit being part of the problem of polypharmacy, which leads to all this xerostomia. And then if you do got xerostomia, what is the best treatment for it, Leo?
Try Moisten, our naturally derived answer to dry mouth relief.
And on that note, Leo, thank you so much for coming on the show today and talking to my homies for an hour.
Thank you so much, Howard. I really appreciate it.